It was past midnight when I realized I wasn't gonna sleep. Not with the heat like this. Not with the way the walls in this building are thinner than my patience on a bad day. I could hear him moving around next door. Not like he was getting ready for bed, more like he was pacing, or maybe just standing still, breathing too loud. I told myself I wasn't gonna knock on his door. I mean, technically that was true. Technically. But then he did something that made it impossible to pretend I hadn't heard. He laughed. Not a normal laugh. Not the kind you let out when something's genuinely funny. This was the kind of laugh that doesn't mean anything is funny at all. It was the sound of someone who's tired of pretending. I froze. My hands were wrapped around a glass of whiskey. Neat, because I'm not a monster. And I just stopped breathing for a second. Because I recognized that laugh. I'd heard it before. In arguments that weren't mine, in silences that lasted too long. I told myself to ignore it, to drink my whiskey, turn up my music, and forget that my neighbor existed. But then he did it again, and this time he didn't stop. I set the glass down, harder than I meant to. The ice clinked against the sides, loud in the quiet of the night. I didn't care. I was already on my feet, my bare feet slapping against the hardwood floor like I was running towards something I shouldn't. Real quick, where are you listening from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I knocked before I could second-guess myself. The door opened fast, like he'd been waiting for it. And there he was, Ryan, my neighbor, the guy I'd seen 100 times in the elevator, always with that stupid smirk like he knew something I didn't, always with those hands, big, steady, the kind you notice without meaning to. He was wearing a white t-shirt, the kind that clings when it's hot, and his shoulders were wide, like he spent his life moving things or maybe just moving people out of his way. He looked tired, not the kind of tired you get from a long day, the other kind, the kind that sits in your bones and doesn't let go. "You okay?" he asked. His voice was rough, like he'd been talking too much or maybe not enough. I should have lied, should have said I was just checking on him, should have said anything but the truth. But the truth was right there, hanging between us like the air between our bodies when we're too close. "I heard you," I said. He didn't ask what I meant. He didn't have to. His eyes went dark. Not angry, not sad, just something else, something that made my stomach tighten. Then he did something I didn't expect. He reached out, just a second too long, his fingers brushing my wrist when he pulled me inside. I let him, because honestly, I wanted to know what he was hiding behind that door. The door clicked shut behind us, and suddenly, the air in his apartment felt different, heavier. Like the silence between us wasn't just empty space, it was full of things we weren't saying. Ryan didn't let go of my wrist right away. His fingers were warm, his grip just tight enough to make it clear he wasn't planning on letting me walk away. Not yet. I should have pulled back, should have made a joke, should have done anything but stand there, letting him pull me farther inside like I belonged there. But I did. His place was the opposite of mine. Neat, organized, like he'd measured every object to make sure it was exactly where it should be. No clutter, no signs of mess, just him. And the sense of something spicy, like cinnamon and smoke, clinging to the air. He let go of me finally, but not before his thumb brushed the inside of my wrist. Just once, just enough. I rubbed my arm, pretending it was the whiskey making my skin too sensitive, pretending I hadn't noticed the way his eyes tracked the movement. "You want a drink?" he asked, already moving toward the kitchen. I should have said no, should have turned around and gone back to my apartment, should have done anything but follow him. But I did. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, no ice this time, and handed me one. Our fingers touched when I took it. His were rough, calloused, the kind of hands that had done more than just lift weights or move furniture. I took a sip, burned all the way down. Ryan leaned against the counter, watching me, His gaze was intense, the kind that makes your skin prickle, like he was trying to solve a puzzle and I was the answer he wasn't sure he wanted to find. "You heard me laughing," he said. Not a question, a statement. I exhaled. "Yeah." He didn't look away, didn't pretend it was just small talk. "You heard everything." My stomach twisted, because that wasn't a question either. I set the glass down, didn't answer. Ryan stepped closer, not enough to touch, just enough to make the space between us feel electric. "I know you did," he said, voice low. "I felt you listening." I swallowed. Hard. Here's the thing. I had been listening. Every night, every sigh, every time he talked to his girlfriend on the phone, his voice going soft like he was trying to be gentle. Every time she laughed and it felt like a knife twisting. But I wasn't about to admit that. "You're imagining things," I said. He smirked, just a little, like he knew I was full of shit. Then he did something that made my breath catch. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered, just for a second, just long enough. I didn't move. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel the heat coming off him, could smell the whiskey on his breath, could see the way his pupils dilated when he looked at me. "Liar," he whispered. And then, like he'd been waiting for the right moment, he pressed his forehead against mine. Just for a second, just long enough to make my knees weak. I should have pulled away, should have slapped him, should have done anything but let him. But I did. Ryan pulled back just enough to look at me. His hands found my waist. Not rough, not possessive, just steady, like he was grounding himself in me. "You know what I think?" he murmured. I shook my head, couldn't trust my voice. "I think you wanted to hear me." A laugh bubbled up in my throat, half disbelief, half something else, something dangerous. "That's insane," I said. He smiled, slow, deliberate. "Is it?" His hands slid up my back, just barely touching, like he was testing the waters, like he was waiting for me to stop him. I didn't. Ryan's breath was warm against my lips, close enough to taste, close enough that I could have closed the distance myself. But then his phone rang. The sound sliced through the tension like a knife. His hands dropped instantly. His eyes flicked to the screen, and whatever he saw made his expression shut down. "Shit," he muttered. "It's her." I didn't ask who. I already knew. He answered, and the sound of her voice, bright, cheerful, oblivious, filled the room. Ryan's body tensed, his jaw clenched. I took a step back, then another. He didn't look at me, just nodded, said, "Yeah, I'm coming," and hung up. The moment was gone, the spell broken. Ryan turned to me, and for a second his eyes were raw, vulnerable, like he wanted to say something but couldn't. Then he shook his head, like he was clearing it. "I should go." I nodded, didn't trust myself to speak. He walked to the door, opened it, but before he stepped out, he paused, turned back. "You're a terrible liar, Harper." And then he was gone, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding, my skin still tingling where he'd touched me. And the worst part? I liked it. The door shut behind him with a finality that made my chest ache. I stood there for a long minute, my fingers pressed against my lips like I could still feel the ghost of his breath there. My skin hummed, my breath came too fast, my body felt like it was vibrating, like I'd downed 3 cups of coffee and forgotten to eat. I should have gone back to my apartment, should have locked my door, should have pretended this never happened. But I didn't. Instead, I walked to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to watch him go. He moved like he always did, easy, unhurried. But tonight, there was something different about him, something loose, like he'd been holding himself together for so long, and now, just for a second, he'd let go. He didn't look up, didn't check if I was watching. That should have been enough. It wasn't. I told myself to go inside, to get a glass of water, to do anything but stand there watching him disappear into the night. But I didn't. I stayed right where I was, my heart hammering against my ribs until his figure disappeared around the corner. Then I let the curtain fall back into place. And that's when I heard it. The sound of a key in the lock of my apartment door. I froze. No one had a key to my place except me and my sister, who lived 3 states away. Unless he had given someone a key. I turned slowly, my pulse roaring in my ears. The door swung open, and there he was. Jake, my boyfriend, the man who'd been calling Ryan earlier. His eyes were wide, his expression a mix of confusion and something else, something like guilt. "Harper?" he said, like he wasn't sure it was really me standing there. I should have said something, should have asked what he was doing here, should have done anything but stand there, my mouth opening and closing like a fish. But I didn't. Jake stepped inside, his gaze flicking around the room like he was looking for something, or someone. "You okay?" he asked, and his voice was too loud in the quiet. I swallowed, nodded. He didn't look convinced. Then his phone rang again. The same ringtone, the same bright, cheerful voice. His girlfriend. The one who wasn't me. Jake's face paled. He fumbled with his phone, silencing it before it could go off again. I should have left. Should have walked out right then. Should have done anything but watch the guilt spread across his face like a stain. But I didn't. I just stood there. And that's when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming up the stairs. Jake's eyes snapped to mine, his expression twisting. "Harper, what the hell?" I didn't let him finish. I turned and ran. Not toward my apartment, not toward the door, but toward Ryan's. I knocked before I could think better of it. The door opened instantly, like he'd been waiting on the other side. Ryan stood there, his shirt rumpled, his hair tousled, like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes were dark, his expression unreadable. "Harper?" he said, and his voice was rough, like he'd been shouting. I didn't wait for him to ask. I just stepped inside, my hands shaky, my breath coming in short gasps. "He's here," I said. Ryan's eyebrows shot up. "Who's—" "Jake, my boyfriend. He's in my apartment right now, and I couldn't finish. Ryan stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat coming off him, close enough that I could see the way his jaw clenched when I said Jake's name. "You ran to me." I nodded. He didn't ask why. He didn't need to. His hands found my waist again, pulling me flush against him. Not rough, not gentle, just needy, like he'd been holding back for so long and now there was no stopping it. "Ryan," I breathed. His name sounded different on my lips, like a prayer, like a warning. He leaned in, his forehead pressing against mine again, just like before, just like he'd been waiting for this moment. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. I should have. I didn't. His lips were a whisper away from mine, close enough to taste, close enough that I could have closed the distance myself. But then, a knock at the door, sharp, insistent. Ryan's body tensed, his hands dropped from my waist. We both turned toward the sound. Jake's voice cut through the silence, loud and angry. "Harper, open the damn door!" Ryan's jaw clenched, his eyes burned into mine. "You gonna answer that?" he asked. I shook my head. He didn't ask what I wanted to do instead. He just pulled me closer, his lips finally meeting mine. Just for a second, just long enough to make my knees weak. Then the door swung open. Lights flooded the room. We stepped apart. Jake stood there, his face twisted in rage. His eyes flicked between us, his body coiled tight like a spring. Ryan didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't look away. I didn't either. And just like that, the wall between us wasn't just between our apartments anymore. It was between all of us. And I wasn't sure any of us were going to survive it.